welcome. Part 3 of Ontario Regulation 29910 is the quality assurance measures that concern behavior intervention strategies. This section is an overview of the quality assurance measures related to behavior intervention strategies to assist you in meeting the requirements. The regulations apply to those service agencies providing any of the following types of services and supports: supported group living residences, intensive support residences, community participation services and supports, activities of daily living services and supports, and caregiver respite services and supports. The definition of these types of services and supports were provided to you in segment 2 of the regulation training video. Service agencies must consider their practices on training on the use of intrusive behavior interventions. Service agencies will have policies and procedures in place for staff and volunteers to assist them in working with persons with a developmental disability who have challenging behavior. All service agency staff and volunteers who work directly with persons with developmental disabilities will receive education and training so they can support the person with their behavior, respond to a person who has challenging behavior, and/or a person who is in a crisis situation. Service agencies will train all staff members who work directly with persons with a developmental disability on the use of physical restraint. A physical restraint is a holding technique to restrict the ability of the person with a developmental disability to move freely, but does not include the restriction of movement, physical redirection, or physical prompting if the restriction is brief, gentle, and part of a behavior teaching program. Prior to staff members beginning any work with persons with developmental disabilities who have challenging behavior, they will be trained on the behavior support plan of the person they will be supporting and the use of behavior interventions outlined in the behavior support plan. If an agency's policies and procedures allow volunteers to work directly with persons with a developmental disability who have challenging behaviors, then training on the behavior support plan and the use of behavior interventions is also required for volunteers before working with the person. The training on the use of behavior interventions for staff members and volunteers and refresher courses may be provided by the service agency or by a third party. It is necessary that service agencies maintain training records for staff members and volunteers who work directly with persons with developmental disabilities, indicating they have completed the training and refresher courses. Part 3 of Ontario Regulation 29910 states that a behavior support plan be developed for each person with a developmental disability who has challenging behavior. Every person who has challenging behaviors needs to have a behavior support plan. Challenging behavior means behavior that is aggressive or injurious to oneself or to others, or that causes property damage, or both, and that limits the ability of the person with a developmental disability to participate in daily life activities or in the community, and/or to learn new skills. A behavior support plan is a document that is based on a written functional assessment of the person that considers historical and current, biological and medical, psychological, social, and environmental factors, known as a biopsychosocial model of the person with a developmental disability. The behavioral support plan will outline positive behavior intervention strategies and, where applicable, intrusive behavior intervention strategies, such as holding a person, using devices to restrict movement, or timeout. It must include the least intrusive and most effective strategies possible for a person with a developmental disability who has challenging behavior. It will also ensure that the strategies referred to are designed to focus on the development of positive behavior, communication, and adaptive skills to enable the person to reduce, change, and overcome their challenging behavior that limits their potential for inclusion in the community. Positive behavior intervention means the use of non-intrusive behavior intervention strategies for the purpose of reinforcing positive behavior and creating a supportive environment, with a goal of increasing positive behaviors or decreasing or eliminating challenging behaviors of the person with a developmental disability. Non-intrusive behavior intervention strategies include the following. 1. Teaching or learning components, including teaching proactive skills and communication strategies to maximize the person's abilities and to minimize challenging behavior. 2. Reinforcement. 3, a review of the person's living environment, including the physical space and support and social networks, to identify possible causes of challenging behavior and making changes to the living environment to reduce or eliminate those causes. It considers the risks and benefits of the various interventions that can be used to address the behavior, and it sets out the least intrusive and most effective strategies possible. The behavior support plan will be monitored for its effectiveness and is reviewed at least twice in each 12-month period. Whenever the behavior support plan includes intrusive behavior intervention strategies, it requires approval by a psychologist, a psychological associate, a physician, a psychiatrist, or a behavior analyst certified by the Behavior Analyst Certification Board. The Ontario Association for Behavior Analysis Standards Development Task Force's website provides an overview on an ethical framework that can be used when considering the implementation of general behavior intervention strategies. These articles, along with other materials concerning behavioral supports, are posted on the QAM web portal. Service agencies must have policies and procedures regarding the use of behavior intervention strategies for persons with developmental disabilities who have challenging behavior, to ensure they have considered and articulated how they will support persons with a developmental disability who have challenging behavior. These policies and procedures will also include whether volunteers will be permitted to use intrusive behavior intervention techniques. Service agencies will ensure that positive behavior interventions and intrusive behavior interventions are used as outlined in the behavior support plan. Compliance with the regulation could be included in critical incident records, occurrence incident reports, daily support journals or diaries, or data records. Volunteers must be aware of the policies and procedures and under what circumstances behavior intervention strategies can be used. Intrusive behavior intervention is used solely when the person with a developmental disability is at immediate risk of harming himself or herself or causing property damage. The following are examples of intrusive procedures or actions. 1. Physical restraint. 2. Secure isolation or confinement timeout in a designated, secure space that is used to separate or isolate the person from others and which the person is not voluntarily able to leave. 3. Prescribe medication to assist the person in calming him or herself with a clearly defined protocol developed by a physician as to when to administer the medication and how it is to be monitored and reviewed, such as PRN protocols. 4. Mechanical restraint, which is a means of controlling behavior that involves the use of devices and equipment to restrict movement, but does not include any restraint or device that is worn most of the time to prevent personal injury, such as a helmet to prevent head injury resulting from seizures, or a device to safely transport a person in a motor vehicle that helps to position balance, such as straps to hold a person upright in a wheelchair, or that is prescribed by a physician to aid in medical treatment, such as straps used to prevent a person from removing an intravenous or G-tube. An agency must ensure that when using a physical or mechanical restraint, it is carried out using the least amount of force that is necessary to restrict the person's ability to move freely. The person with a developmental disability must be monitored on a regular basis when intrusive behavior intervention is used. Keep a record of all incidents in the person's file when an intrusive behavior intervention is used, and must evaluate the use and effectiveness of the intrusive behavior interventions used on the person. Using intrusive interventions should always be considered as a last resort. In a crisis situation, physical restraint is the only intrusive behavior intervention that a service agency may use, and may only be used where positive behavior interventions have proven to be ineffective. A crisis situation means circumstances where a person with a developmental disability is displaying challenging behavior that is new or more intense than that which was displayed in the past, and the person lacks a behavior support plan, or the strategies outlined in the person's behavior support plan do not effectively address the challenging behavior. The challenging behavior places the person at immediate risk of harming him or herself or others, or causing property damage. and attempts to de-escalate the situation have been ineffective. The physical restraint is carried out using the least amount of force that is necessary to restrict the person's ability to move freely. All crisis situations will be recorded in the person's file, including the details of the incident. Agencies must continue to apply the policy directive concerning serious occurrence reporting and report all restraints to the ministry. It is important to remember the existing serious occurrence reporting directives on physical restraints states that a physical restraint is not reportable when it is a physical redirection or physical prompting if the restriction of movement, physical redirection, or physical prompting is brief, gentle, and part of a behavior teaching program. A physical restraint used in a crisis situation is reportable. That concludes training on Part 3 of Behavior Intervention Strategies. Thank you.